missiles, targeted killings and cyber weapons. Another chapter explains how Israeli arms sales fund innovation. Conspicuously absent from the study are accounts of failed weapons programs, or Israel's nuclear program, which provides Israel with its ultimate qualitative edge. Throughout their history, Katz and Bohbot wonder why Israel produces so many advanced arms. They provide several complementary explanations. Strategically, Israelis believe they must innovate or disappear. Israel has always sought advanced weapons, even before it developed the capacity to produce them indigenously in the late 1960s. In 1953, Israel promulgated a doctrine of defense, still in force today, stating it would maintain a very strong qualitative military edge, QME, relative to its neighboring states. Since then Israel has continuously faced innovative enemies, from Arab states armed with advanced Soviet weaponry to the hybrid threat Hezbollah. It has had numerous opportunities to sharpen its edge in combat, and a strategic imperative to do so. Economically, Israel spends 4.5% of GDP on research and development, and 30% of all R&D on products of a military nature. The country also benefits from $6.5 billion of arms exports and $6 billion of cyber exports annually, whose profits fund further innovation. The United States also provides billions of dollars of military aid to Israel, including extensive transfers of advanced military technology. The Merkava tank program, for example, was funded by the United States, although U.S. military aid is barely mentioned. Institutionally and societally, the Katz and Bohbot believe Israel has cultural advantages which enable innovation. The authors suggest at various times that Israelis have high risk tolerance, high levels of education and an inherent propensity to innovate. The Israel Defense Forces are described as brash, undisciplined, young, and benefiting from an absence of hierarchy. Is it also highly educated? Thanks to Israeli conscription, most Israeli weapons designers are combat veterans, and they have strong links to those who will employ their products in combat. What fails to emerge from this account is a coherent theoretical explanation of Israeli military innovation. Indeed, Katz and Bohbot present numerous contradictory quotations from Israeli leaders and weapons designers about Jewish genius. In different case studies we are told Israelis possess Jewish genius due to a unique Jewish genome, but also that, contradictorily, Israelis don't have different genes than Western people. Moreover, the IDF as Katz and Bohbot describe it as a Silicon Valley trope, a flat organization, run by young and highly educated people, with ample resources, who generate revolutionary innovation and immense returns. Whether flat, young, affluent organizations actually produce the most effective weapons is not addressed. Like many other Israeli soldiers, Katz and Bohbot are eager to minimize the importance of foreign support to the IDF. Given the immense role of American sponsorship of Israel's defense industry, their failure to account for American aid renders this book almost valueless as a standalone account. In the aftermath of the 1973 Yom Kippur War, in which Israel was nearly annihilated by Arab states using Soviet arms, the United States tacitly adopted a policy of guaranteeing Israel's QME. In 2008, this policy was codified in U.S. law. The billions of dollars of American military aid which funded every major Israeli weapons program in this book receive only passing references, however. In an even more bizarre nationalistic pipe dream, the authors wrongly suggest that Israel has primarily been a source of military technology transfer to the United States. In the most egregious example of this, they repeatedly claim Israel invented drones. This is preposterous hyperbole. The United States deployed military drones extensively during the Vietnam War while Israel was literally flying toy model airplanes on reconnaissance missions in the Sinai. Today, Israel does lead the global drone market, its exports make up 60% of the global market, and America's only 23.9%. But that is primarily because Israel has successfully pursued a comparative advantage in short-endurance tactical drone production since the 1970s. Since the cancellation of the Lavi fighter program in 1987, it has exclusively relied on American designs for manned combat aircraft, while focusing its resources, many of which are provided by the United States, on drones. Most fundamentally, Katz and Bohbot fail to give full credit to Israel's multifaceted qualitative military edge. As Elliot Cohen, Michael Eisenstadt and Andrew Abasovich put it in 1998. The IDF has traditionally relied less on technical inventions to secure victory than on the fighter's tactical proficiency and spirit of self-sacrifice, and this core belief sets one of a number of limits on the importance assigned to technological chance. For Israeli military thinkers, the answer to their enemy's quantitative superiority is quality, a comprehensive quality that rests only part abilities. The United States began sending first-line fighters to Israel in the late 1960s, when the F-4E Phantom II joined the Israeli Air Force. The F-4s were followed by the F-15A Eagle Air Superiority Fighter in 1976, and by the F-16A Fighting Falcon multi-role fighter in 1980. These fighters were eventually followed by the F-15C, F-15I Strike Fighter, and F-16C and F-16I fighters. With the exception of the F-22 Raptor, the Israeli Air Force's fighter fleet is as well equipped as the U.S. Air Force's. Israel first applied to buy the F-35 in September 2008, when it requested to purchase 25 jets with an option for another 50. The F-35s would fill a void created by retiring early model F-16s. According to Defense Industry Daily, the Israelis were quoted a sticker shock-inducing $200 million per jet. While this number came down considerably within a year to a more concerning $100 million plus, it was clear the F-35 would be a very expensive purchase for the tiny Middle Eastern country. By October 2014, Israel agreed to double its F-35 fleet to 50 aircraft. Unlike many of the Lockheed Martin's F-35 customers, Israel pushed for and received permission to integrate a number of local technologies into their aircraft, which was locally named the F-35I, or a dear, mighty. Israel made the case that it lived in a state of near-constant conflict, and this required the country's F-35 fleet to not only stand apart logistically but technologically. One key technology is the integration of an Israeli-developed command, control, communications, computer and intelligence (C4I) system into the ADIR. The standalone system draws sensor data from the aircraft but otherwise does not interact with the F-35's computer system. From there, the C4I system pushes out the data to other Israeli military assets, particularly nearby fighters, via locally made data links to help detect, prioritize and attack enemy targets. The C4I technology is particularly necessary in light of the immense rocket threat to Israel. Hezbollah alone is thought to have up to 150,000 tactical rockets it can shower on the small country. In any future war, the number of rocket launch locations could be overwhelming, that is, unless Israel can rapidly draw and launch location data, process it and quickly churn out a prioritized target list for the Israeli Air Force to hunt down. The F-35I will also carry Israeli-designed missiles. The jet will carry defense contractor Rafael's Spice 1000 precision-guided bomb instead of the GPS-guided JDAM bomb. Spice, smart, precise, impact, cost-effective, 1000 is an add-on package that bolts both satellite and an electro-optical guidance systems on an unguided Mk. 83,000-pound bomb. This allows Spice 1000 to not only attack targets based on GPS coordinates, but to also insert a man in the loop who can manually place the bomb on target, or abort the strike if necessary. Spice 1000 can glide up to 62 miles to target and is so accurate it can place half of all bombs within 9 feet of their target. The F-35 will also carry the Python 5 infrared air-to-air missile instead of the American AIM-9X Sidewinder. The missile's ability to lock on after launch means the missile can be launched from the F-35's internal weapons bay and lock onto enemy aircraft under its own power. Another IF requirement was also to add a pair of 425-gallon fuel tanks to the ADIR that extend the plane's total fuel and range by approximately 36%. While the addition of an external fuel tank would compromise the F-35 stealth, a source told Aviation Week and Space Technology the fuel tank could be used during early phases of an air operation where stealth was not necessary, and jettisoned after use. The first F-35 has arrived in Israel in late 2016, with 3 more jets arriving in April 2017. 7. According to Israeli Air Force officials quoted by the Times of Israel, the remaining 45 planes will trickle out every few months, and the first jets should become fully operational by October 2018. Israel plans to have 2 squadrons stood up and fully operational by 2021 or 2022. Given that the F-35I will replace literally hundreds of early model F-15s and F-16s, a second and even third order of planes seems likely, particularly when the price comes down to the projected goal of $85 million each for the A model. The F-35A might not be the only variant Israel purchases. In 2015, it was revealed, the country was considering adding the F-35B, the vertical takeoff and landing version of the jet, to the Israeli Air Force's inventory. The missile threat posed by Israel's neighbors, particularly Hezbollah, could temporarily shut down Israeli air bases across the country and
as it could find. This meant that the IDF often operated with equipment of a variety of vintages, mostly secured from European producers. By the late 1950s, however, Israel had secured arms transfer relationships with several countries, most notably the United Kingdom and France. The relationship with France eventually blossomed, resulting in the transfer of high-technology military equipment, including Mirage fighters, and also significant technical assistance for Israel's nuclear program. These Mirage fighters formed the core of the IDF in the 1967 Six-Day War, in which Israel largely destroyed its neighbors' air forces in the first hours of the conflict. In 1967, however, France imposed an arms embargo on Israel, which left Tel Aviv in a quandary. The IDF needed more fighters, and also sought capabilities that the Mirage could not provide, including medium-range ground strike. Under these conditions, the Israelis adopted the time-honored strategy of simply stealing what they needed. To complement their existing airframes, the Israelis acquired technical blueprints of the Mirage through espionage, possibly with the tolerance of some French authorities. The project resulted in two fighters, the Israel Aerospace Industries, EAI, Nesher and the EAI. The second employed more powerful American-designed engines, and for a time served as the primary fighter of the IDF's air arm. Both aircraft enjoyed export success, with the Nesher serving in Argentina and the KFOR flying for Colombia, Ecuador and Sri Lanka. This investment helped drive the development of Israel's aerospace sector, with big implications for the rest of Israel's economy. Heavy state investment in military technological development does not always drive broader innovations in civilian technology. In this case, however, state investment provided a key pillar for the early development of Israel's civilian technology sector. To many, the success of the KFOR suggested that Israel could stand on its own in aerospace technology, eliminating the need to rely on a foreign sponsor. Nevertheless, Israel continued to invest heavily in foreign aircraft. The IDF began acquiring F-4 Phantoms in the late 1960s, and F-15 Eagles in the mid-1970s. The arrival of the latter in Israel inadvertently sparked a political crisis, as the first four aircraft landed after the beginning of the Sabbath. The ensuing controversy eventually brought down the first premiership of Yitzhak Rabin. But many in Israel, still buoyed by the relative success of the KFOR and hopeful about further developing Israel's high-tech sector, believed that the country could aspire to develop its own fighter aircraft. Enter the Lavi. Like its counterparts in both the USSR and the United States, the IDF Air Arm believed that a high-low mix of fighters best served its needs. This led to the development of the Lavi, a light multi-role fighter that could complement the F-15 Eagles that Israel continued to acquire from the United States. The Lavi filled the niche that the F-16 Viper would eventually come to dominate. It included some systems licensed by the United States, and visually resembled an F-16 with a different wing configuration. But the military technological environment had changed. Developing the Lavi from scratch, or virtually from scratch, required an enormous state investment for an aircraft that had marginal, if any, advantages over an off-the-shelf F-16. Moreover, the United States took export controls much more seriously than France, and had a much more dangerous toolkit for enforcing compliance. Despite initial optimism about the export prospects of the Lavi, it soon became apparent to Israelis that the United States would not allow the wide export of a fighter that included significant American components. That the Lavi would have competed directly against the F-16 only exacerbated the problem. In August 1987, the Israeli cabinet killed the Lavi, which caused protests from EAI and the workers associated with the project. Nevertheless, a political effort to revive the plane failed, and Israel eventually acquired a large number of F-16s. In its afterlife, however, the Lavi helped kill the export prospects of the F-22 Raptor, out of concern that Israel had shared Lavi, and thus F-16, technology with the Chinese, leading to the J-10. The US Congress prohibited any export of the F-22. This decision prevented Israel and several other interested buyers from acquiring the Raptor, and undoubtedly cut short its overall production life. Instead of pursuing its own fighters, Israel has lately preferred to extensively modify the aircraft it buys from the United States. The F-15I Thunder and the F-16I Storm have both received major upgrades to optimize them for Israeli service. Both planes have increased range and improved avionics, enabling the IDF to fight effectively at great distance from its bases. The F-15I, a variant of the F-15E Strike Eagle, is the IAF's most important long-range strike platform. The IAF has already undertaken steps to make the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter more suitable for Israeli service, including advanced software modifications. EAI has continued to see great success, despite the lack of a major fighter project. EAI has thrived on developing and exporting components for domestic as well as export use, including munitions and avionics. EAI has also gone big into the UAF market, with major success both within Israel and abroad. And despite the failure of the